Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to hear is not just a story about planes, weapons, or politics. It is a story about dignity, about a nation that refused to kneel when pressured, about a country that decided to say enough. India's act of returning American fighter jets and weapons represents far more than a simple diplomatic maneuver or a shift in defense policy. It is a symbolic assertion of self-respect, a reminder to the world that national pride cannot be traded for military hardware. While politics often focuses on strategy, leverage, and negotiations, dignity touches the core of a nation's identity. By sending back such advanced equipment, India is communicating that its sovereignty and principles are not for sale. This action challenges the assumption that power is measured solely by the possession of weapons. Instead, it reframes true strength as the ability to walk away from deals that compromise self-worth. Such a move inevitably invites scrutiny, criticism, and even risk, because rejecting the military assets of a powerful country like the United States means willingly foregoing potential advantages in defense capabilities. Yet, this choice underlines that not all benefits are worth the cost if they come with strings attached. The dignity here lies in refusing to be seen as dependent or subordinate, even when offered state-of-the-art technology. It shows that India values the integrity of its decisions over the allure of imported power. In global politics, such acts are rare because they require confidence, resilience, and a willingness to endure short-term sacrifices for long-term honor. The gesture also sends a subtle but clear signal to other nations. India's partnerships are welcome, but they must be grounded in equality, not dominance. It elevates the conversation from transactional exchanges to a dialogue of mutual respect. On the world stage, this act positions India as a country that is not merely reacting to events, but shaping its own narrative. It tells its citizens and allies alike that while security is vital, it should never come at the cost of becoming beholden to another power's influence. Dignity, in this context, becomes a form of strategic capital, a currency that strengthens India's negotiating position in future alliances. Moreover, the act is deeply rooted in the psychology of national pride. A country's image, both to itself and to the world, is defined by how it handles moments of pressure. Returning such significant military assets is a bold step, one that risks misunderstanding by those who see only the immediate tactical disadvantages. But for those who grasp the broader vision, it is an affirmation that India will not compromise its principles for convenience. It transforms what could be perceived as a loss into a statement of independence. By framing the decision as one of dignity rather than hostility, India also avoids unnecessary escalation while still making its position unmistakably clear. In the intricate balance of diplomacy, that is a rare and powerful achievement, the ability to defend national honor without firing a shot. The phrase 50% revenge in this context is not about retaliation driven by rage, but about restoring equilibrium in a relationship that has tilted too far in one direction. It reflects a strategic choice to respond proportionately, ensuring that India's actions send a clear signal without crossing the line into hostility. By returning half of the American fighter jets and weapons, India demonstrates that it is neither bowing to pressure nor seeking total rupture in ties. Instead, it is recalibrating the terms of engagement. This proportional response embodies a philosophy of measured strength, the understanding that the most impactful moves in international politics are not always the loudest or the most aggressive, but the ones that are calculated, precise, and unmistakable in their intent. It is an assertion that India will not remain silent in the face of perceived disrespect, yet it also shows a refusal to engage in reckless escalation. The 50% revenge concept also carries an important psychological undertone. It frames the action as a deliberate choice rather than an emotional reaction, reinforcing the image of India as a mature and responsible power that can stand its ground without being consumed by vendetta. This balance of power ensures that the other side understands the seriousness of the message while leaving room for future dialogue and cooperation. It is a reminder that international relations are not about submission or dominance, but about parity, the ability to deal with one another as equals. The symbolism of returning exactly half of what was acquired sends a subtle yet profound message. The relationship is worth preserving, but only on fair and respectful terms. This approach resonates with the idea that diplomacy is as much about perception as it is about tangible outcomes. A measured act of 50% revenge signals to allies and rivals alike that India is capable of defending its position without closing the door to negotiation. It strengthens India's global standing as a nation that knows when to resist and when to reconcile. Furthermore, it teaches a lesson in restraint that real power lies in the capacity to act decisively without succumbing to the temptation of going too far. It is about controlling the narrative, ensuring that India's actions are seen not as driven by hostility, but as grounded in fairness and proportion. In doing so, the country avoids the pitfalls of being labeled aggressive or uncompromising while still making its point with undeniable clarity. The term 50% revenge thus becomes a metaphor for strategic dignity, a reminder that the most effective responses are often those that blend firmness with foresight. It is not the fury of the moment, but calculation of the future that defines true leadership in the international arena. Partnerships in the realm of international relations are most enduring and productive when they are founded on mutual respect, where both sides recognize each other's sovereignty, values, and strategic interests. Mutual respect means that agreements and collaborations are formed transparently, without one side attempting to impose hidden conditions that undermine the other's independence. When partnerships carry concealed clauses or subtle forms of control, they erode trust and shift the relationship from one of equality to one of dependency or subordination. In such arrangements, the stronger party may try to leverage its position to dictate terms, influence policy decisions, or extract concessions unrelated to the original agreement. This not only creates resentment, but also compromises the long-term stability of the relationship. True cooperation requires honesty and openness, where each party knows exactly what is expected and what will be delivered. It is about working toward common goals without attempting to weaken or manipulate the other. When a nation like India engages in a partnership, it seeks not only resources or technology, but also a recognition of its right to make independent decisions in line with its national interests. Any attempt to attach strings that infringe upon these rights transforms a partnership into a tool of control, undermining its legitimacy. Hidden conditions, whether in defense deals, trade agreements, or diplomatic commitments, can be as damaging as overt coercion because they foster suspicion and breed mistrust. Over time, these hidden pressures can backfire, leading the affected nation to push back forcefully to reclaim its autonomy. Respect in partnerships is not merely a diplomatic courtesy, it is a practical necessity for building alliances that can withstand global challenges and political shifts. Nations that feel respected are more likely to cooperate wholeheartedly, share resources openly, and stand by their partners in times of crisis. In contrast, those that feel controlled will inevitably seek to reduce their dependence, and may even pivot toward other alliances that offer greater freedom. In the modern, interconnected world, where geopolitical alignments are constantly shifting, maintaining genuine partnerships requires a conscious effort to avoid exploitation and to ensure fairness at every stage. For India, asserting that partnerships must be based on mutual respect is a way of safeguarding its sovereignty while keeping the door open for constructive collaboration. It is a declaration that engagement with other powers is welcome, but only if it is built on trust, transparency, and equality. This principle reinforces the idea that cooperation should be empowering, not constraining, and that any attempt to disguise control as assistance will ultimately weaken the bond between nations. By holding firm to this standard, India not only protects its own national interests, but also sets an example for how global partnerships can be conducted with integrity and mutual benefit at their core. Sovereignty is the cornerstone of any independent nation's identity, encompassing the full authority to make decisions that safeguard its people, territory, and interests without the intrusion of outside forces. When a nation asserts that it has the right to defend and decide without foreign interference, it is affirming that its security policies, defense strategies, and political choices are determined by its own leadership, guided by the will of its citizens. This moment, centered on sovereignty, is a declaration that India will not allow external powers to dictate the terms of its protection or influence the pathways it chooses for its development and defense. Sovereignty in this sense is not merely a legal or constitutional principle, it is a lived reality that affects how a country engages with the world. Without it, any decisions made could be shaped by the priorities of others rather than the needs of the nation itself. Foreign interference, whether overt or subtle, compromises this independence by inserting another country's agenda into the heart of domestic decision making. This can occur through military dependency, conditional aid, or even diplomatic pressure designed to steer a nation's policies in a certain direction. For India, maintaining sovereignty means ensuring that its defense infrastructure, alliances, and strategic decisions remain aligned with its own vision of security and prosperity. It means having the capacity to protect its borders, safeguard its citizens, and determine the tools, technologies, and partnerships that best serve those ends. The right to defend is inseparable from the right to decide, because without control over decision making, defense becomes a borrowed shield that can be taken away or manipulated. This moment is about standing firm in the belief that a nation's safety should never come at the cost of its autonomy. It is about recognizing that external powers, no matter how friendly, will always prioritize their own interests, and thus the ultimate responsibility for defense must rest with the nation itself. Sovereignty also carries a symbolic weight that resonates with the public, reinforcing national pride and unity. When citizens see their leaders resisting undue foreign influence, it strengthens their confidence in the state's ability to act in their best interest. This is why the assertion of sovereignty is often accompanied by decisive, highly visible actions. They are meant to demonstrate to both domestic and international audiences that the country is not merely a participant in global affairs, but an independent actor capable of shaping its own destiny. In the context of global politics, defending sovereignty is not about isolationism, but about engaging on terms that preserve equality and self-determination. It is a reminder that true partnerships respect boundaries and do not seek to control the choices of others. By framing this moment as a defense of sovereignty, India is not rejecting cooperation, but making it clear that cooperation must never come at the expense of independence, and that the right to defend and decide belongs solely to the nation and its people. India's decision to take the harder path of pride and principle over submission is a powerful demonstration of national character and political will. Choosing this route means willingly facing greater challenges in the short term to safeguard values that are vital in the long term. It is easy for any nation to yield under pressure when powerful allies or global superpowers exert influence, offering lucrative deals, advanced technology, or strategic benefits in exchange for compliance. The path of submission often appears safer and more convenient because it avoids confrontation and preserves immediate material gains. Yet, it comes at the silent cost of eroding self-respect, weakening sovereignty, and setting a precedent for future compromises. India's choice is rooted in the understanding that national dignity cannot be measured solely by economic or military transactions, but by the unwavering commitment to make decisions free from coercion. Taking the harder path means accepting the possibility of temporary disadvantages, fewer resources, delayed advancements, or strained diplomatic ties, but refusing to surrender the right to act independently. This requires courage because it demands standing firm against forces that may threaten economic consequences or political isolation. It is not a reaction born of defiance for its own sake, but a deliberate stand that prioritizes principles over expediency. Pride here does not imply arrogance. It signifies a deep sense of identity, history, and self, worth that resists being diminished in the pursuit of short-term comfort. Principle refers to the moral and ethical foundation that guides decisions, ensuring that actions are consistent with the nation's values, regardless of the pressures faced. The combination of both creates a moral compass that refuses to bend for convenience or external approval. This kind of courage is rare in global politics because it places integrity above the allure of immediate rewards. It sends a message to the world that India is prepared to face difficulty rather than trade away its autonomy. Such decisions also strengthen internal unity, as citizens witness their leaders prioritizing the collective honor of the nation over political expedience. It inspires confidence in governance and builds a legacy of resilience that future generations can draw upon. In the global arena, this stance reshapes perceptions, earning respect even from those who may disagree with the decision. Other nations take note when a country demonstrates it will not be swayed by pressure, recognizing it as a partner that values equality in relationships. India's choice shows that true power lies not in the ability to acquire more weapons, wealth, or influence, but in the strength to say no when the price of acceptance is the loss of independence. By taking this harder path, India proves that survival is not enough. A nation must also protect its honor, maintain its voice, and hold fast to the principles that define it, even when the easier road beckons with promises of comfort and advantage. The statement that the action sends a global message, India welcomes friendship, but never at the cost of freedom, reflects a clear and powerful diplomatic posture. It signals to the world that India values alliances, partnerships, and cooperation with other nations, but only when these relationships are grounded in mutual respect and equality. Friendship in international relations is beneficial when it fosters trust, economic growth, security cooperation, and cultural exchange. However, when friendship begins to demand compromises that erode a nation's sovereignty or force it to act against its own interests, it ceases to be genuine and becomes a form of control. India's action demonstrates that while it is open to working with countries like the United States or any other power, it will not accept terms that undermine its independence in decision-making or defense strategy. This position is important because in global politics, offers of friendship can sometimes come with expectations that tilt the balance of power in favor of the stronger party. By returning fighter jets and weapons under conditions it found unacceptable, India has made it clear that it values its freedom to choose its defense policies without interference. The message resonates beyond the immediate context of U.S. India tensions, reaching all current and potential allies. India's partnerships are available to those who approach as equals, not as patrons dictating the rules. This approach also reassures the Indian public that the country's leadership will not trade away autonomy for short-term benefits, whether in defense, trade, or diplomacy. Freedom here means more than political independence. It encompasses the right to define national priorities, control strategic resources, and protect the cultural and moral framework that guides national policy. The global message also carries a subtle challenge. If other nations truly value India as a partner, they must engage in ways that respect its boundaries and acknowledge its agency. In refusing to compromise freedom for friendship, India is setting a precedent for other nations that face similar pressures from more powerful allies. It shows that it is possible to maintain relationships without surrendering the ability to act independently. This reinforces India's image as a confident and self-reliant power on the international stage, one that welcomes cooperation but will walk away if the terms threaten its sovereignty. Such a stance strengthens India's negotiating position, as partners know that its acceptance of any agreement will be based on fairness, not coercion. The action communicates resilience, the readiness to face potential diplomatic fallout or material loss in order to protect a greater, more enduring asset, national freedom. It reminds the world that true friendship between nations is not about dominance and submission, but about standing side by side, respecting each other's choices, and allowing each other the space to pursue their own paths without interference.